In 1986, Father R.C. Chacko was appointed the regional superior. He faced the challenges of possibly having more permanent structures in education. For our work by Father Peter Doherty and Father Tony Herbert among the Dalits and Father Hans Hendricks among the Santals.
It was in my time that Hazaribag became a province. The challenges that I faced as the first Indian superior are the challenge of transition from the Australians to Indian Jesuits. Secondly, the challenge of consolidation of our varied ministries. And thirdly, the challenge of expansion. The transition was smooth for me, I must say, much against my own fears. The transition was smooth because the Australian Jesuits collaborated very well, played a supportive role in ensuring that the Indian Jesuits were solely able to be in charge of our ministries. Secondly, consolidation meant that a number of pioneering ministries that we had some very good charismatic Jesuits who had that charism of starting apostolates among the Santals, among the Dalits and various other places, and these were ventures that were really producing great results, but then they were all remaining individual, separate entities, and the time had come to bring them all into the overall apostolic plan of the province. And that was a great challenge. It was the same case with the Dalit ministry too. And as a result, we had the Prerna Center and several other centers in the villages. Same is true for all our village schools. We had to institutionalize into a permanent structure some of the schools and schooling system both here and in Palamu. The same way the case also was with the diocesan schools. One of the great challenges or greatest challenges that I faced was the diocese was going through a problem of finance because there was a government ban on receiving foreign funds. Therefore, the society had to chip in and help them in running all the diocesan schools, and also to set up the diocesan education board. That was a challenge. Thirdly, the challenge was expansion. Expansion also meant that Indian Jesuits slowly taking charge of our ministries, plus also going into places hitherto untouched. Xavier was one who had a great pioneering spirit, and he began to venture out into new places, starting with Chiropath, and then afterwards he went into Geminiatad area. Many others followed his example. Expansion also meant upgrading our own primary schools now into secondary schools, high schools in many places. Expansion also meant that we also go into research and intellectual apostolate, and so many people began to enter into that as a result. Paul Jackson entered into Islam, Bill Dwyer began to write, Xavier went into legal aid, and then above all, we had the Prerna Resource Center started in Hazaribag.
Father Xavier took charge in Tarwa early in 1987. Besides continuing satsang sessions in villages and mobile grihinis.
I came to Tarwa. Father Drabiam, Father A.T. Thomas and Father Peter Daughter also were there. And it is good with such people, such fathers. And then Father Drabiam and A.T. used to go to every villages because we had non-formal schools. And also we had in the village Greeny. So sisters were looking after the Greeny schools.
Xavier expanded the educational outreach.
Those days, and he increased the number of day schools to 6 total schools. The schools were like Krishna Nagar, then Tildra, Murtiya, Alonja, all these places he was visiting. Especially Murtiya, those days even the SCJM Sisters, they were staying there, and later they came to Tarwa. And the night school were also increased those days to number 62, because Dravyam, he realized it is education which is ultimately going to help the people. And even now we know so much educational upliftment has taken place in the Tarwa mission. And the primary school in Tarwa itself was upgraded to class 6 during those days. And especially the Alonja village school was given permission by the local authority. Opening permission was given because it was the need of the people, and they were very much emphasizing to run a good school which ran for so many years.
At the same time, the small primary school at Tarwa was upgraded to class 6. There was a small hostel for boys and girls, and the Sisters of Charity of Jesus and Mary came to Tarwa to teach in the school, look after the girls' hostel, and work in the village apostolate. Then, in October 1991, 5 acres of land was bought in Tarwa to make it possible for future expansion of the educational trust. For 3 years, Father Peter Jones was assistant parish priest to Father Camile Kujur and learnt a lot from Camile, who after all was from and of the Chachari. In January 1985, Camile was transferred and Peter was appointed parish priest. Father Suleiman Minj and Ignatius Barwa, both from Chachari as Peter's assistants, were also great guides in the pastoral apostolate. Peter encouraged regular village retreats with a team. During this time, Charles Soreng S.J. was consecrated bishop in Mahuadanar. Father Michael Ether was transferred to the Mahuadanar community in 1985. His focus was on how tribals learn maths. Every day, he cycled to our primary school at Tuntoli, taught maths, studied the maths teaching of the other teachers. The result was his publication of textbooks of English and maths, which subsequently have been used for many years in our schools. Father John Minj became the parish priest in June 1988. The Assumption Sisters had withdrawn from Chiro. To improve the teaching in the 11 government primary schools, John sent a teacher paid by the mission to also teach in these schools. Father Gyan took over as parish priest in May 1990. At that time, a bauxite company came to the Chiro area and put pressure on the people to hand over their lands. Most of the people resisted, but the pressure continued. Eventually, Father George Thomas and Father Gyan filed a writ in the Supreme Court. The Supreme Court issued a stay order, and the bauxite mining process was delayed, at least for some years. Gyan continued the policy of strengthening of the government schools with our teachers. At the same time, he added class 4 to the Chiro Mission School, which was class 5 to class 8. Eventually, it would be class 1 to class 8. With St. Robert's High School moving into the former hostel building of St.Xavier's in 1977, there were 2 schools on the same campus. This challenge was taken up by Bob Slattery as HM of St. Robert's and Bill Dwyer and Bernard Donnelly as principals of St.Xavier's. There was a sharing of facilities, playgrounds, laboratory, hall, and even at one stage, one football team with boys of both schools. As members of the one school team,
those 3 things, they all had to be put to the province, changing the nature of the schools. Well, there were meetings, followed by meetings, followed by meetings. Those responsible for St. Robert's did not want girls in the compound. They said it would not be suitable to have them. And also, so long as the 2 schools are together, they should be of the same standard, and St. Xavier should not go +2 just yet. I was given permission then to change over to a CBSE, which now, from that time on, is met with success. Nobody at the time could guess that within 5 or 6 years, St. Xavier's would go co-ed, and St. Robert's also in the long run went co-ed, and both schools went up to +2. So sometimes you have to go along with those who are somewhat more conservative and let development take its pace.
gradually, St. Robert's building was extended to accommodate more office space and classroom space, a simple science laboratory installed, a library fitted up, and a new innovation was the teaching of Santali, even for the matriculation board examination. Father Tony Homan was parish priest from January 1985 to December 1993. His assistant for most of the time was Father Gavin O'Sullivan. Both Tony and Gavin were meticulous in visiting their parishioners, keeping up parish records. Tony did much to put the parish on a sound financial footing by introducing a regular monthly contribution system. During this time, land was purchased at Balidi and a middle school started for the people of that area, where in fact there are many Santals. It was named St. Louis School, no doubt keeping in mind the early days of Father Lou Lachal in the area. Father P.O. Chacko was principal from 1990 to 1997. It was a difficult time as some disgruntled elements were not happy with the way Chacko was running the school. At one occasion, he was the victim of physical assault. There were also elements in the employ of the school, especially among the maintenance, security, transport staff, who were not comfortable with the way they found things had become. Chacko was presented with a charter of demands on behalf of a few disgruntled employees, backed by a local trade union. Chacko weathered all these storms, supported strongly by Father Koshi, the community superior and the Jesuits. And as Father Kevin Cronin pointed out in his book, in ever-increasing measure, St.Xavier's was never as well administered as during the term of Chacko's term of office as principal. At least from 1985, Brother Camile Kujur moved permanently from Chandwa Parish, 5 km away to Bhusar, asked by Bishop George Sopin to develop something there, and Brother Michael just did that. He set up a training center to train young people as masons to learn agricultural pump maintenance, bicycle repairing, elementary land measuring techniques, all handy skills to get jobs. Eventually, Brother Michael wrote 2 books, one on the cultural traditions of the Orao people, the other a practical manual on how to carry out simple but accurate land measuring tasks. Obviously, Brother Michael was a man of many talents used in the service of the people.